is to tell it. You never asked for the story. It found you anyway. Maybe it was told to you in childhood, something whispered by a cousin, or muttered in a game you don't remember playing. Maybe you read it online, hidden inside a thread that no longer exists. Maybe you found it scratched into a library desk, or overheard it in a crowded train. A story. Just a story. With a lesson at the end. But now, it's showing up again. And you're the only one who notices. You see the same words on the wall of a gas station bathroom. You hear the final line whispered in a stranger's TikTok, layered under music. It shows up in your inbox, in spam mail, in phone glitches. You ask people about it. They don't remember it the way you do, or they laugh. But you remember the rhythm, the shape, the way it ends. That same sentence you're sure you've never seen, but always known. And when you try to remember where it came from, there's nothing. Just the weight of something old. Something borrowed. Something viral. And now, it wants out. In 2009, a teacher in South Yorkshire was quietly suspended. No formal charges, no press release. The reason? 23 students from different classrooms submitted identical, moral stories during a creative writing exercise. Same ending. Same phrasing. No common book, no shared discussion, no online forum connecting them. One parent described it as dreamlike plagiarism. A leaked memo from the school called it a possible psychological contamination event. A year later, a redacted FOIA document surfaced under the codename Project Echo 7. It wasn't British. It was American. And it wasn't about education. It was about parabolic autoreplication. Story structures that spread without media. Without authors. Without origin. A Redditor on /r/nosleep once posted, "I heard my little brother tell this weird story about a boy in a red coat who never turned around. The story ended with the line, 'And that's why you never say his name out loud.' I laughed. Then realized I told the same story in a school play when I was 9. I don't remember writing it. No one remembers the play." The post was deleted. But variations of that same story, with different coats, different settings, the same ending, have been traced to 1994, 1977, and possibly earlier. In forums, linguists have documented sentence structures that repeat across continents, often with no linguistic explanation. Same phrasing. Same lesson. No credited author. It's as if the story writes through someone, then vanishes. A theory began to form, buried in fringe journals and quickly discredited by academia. The idea of mnemonic parasitism, stories that hijack dormant narrative patterns in the brain. Like songs that loop without permission. But worse, the kind of executable syntax designed not to entertain, but to embed. One paper from a closed MIT research group described them as self-spawning narrative pathogens. Not fiction. Not memes. But infectious emotional code. The more you hear it, the more it demands to be repeated. And the more you repeat it, the less you remember why. One Reddit user claimed their partner began telling a strange little tale during sleep. Every night. Same words. Same tone. They started recording it. Played it back. But when the story played in reverse, something else was there. A whisper buried beneath the cadence. The same line again. He never turned around. The account is now gone. You start to wonder if these stories are memories. Or instructions. Or warnings. Why do so many of them end with a moral? Why do they feel familiar before you've heard them? Why do you find yourself mouthing the words before the line is spoken? You try to forget it. But forgetting isn't enough. Because now you're retelling it. In conversation. In passing. Without realizing. And each time, the story gets sharper. Shorter. Like it knows it's being watched. Or like it's watching you. This was never your story. It was never anyone's. It has no source. No author. Just a voice. And now that voice is inside you. Quiet. Waiting. And the only way out. You used to read them without thinking. Short stories. Little moral riddles. Folk tales passed around like candy. Cheap, harmless, forgettable. But now, they don't feel like stories. They feel like something else. Like something running. You don't read them anymore. You execute them. Because something about the phrasing feels engineered. Too smooth. Too clean. Like someone didn't write it, they compiled it. It starts with a rhythm. A certain sentence length. An echoing phrase. Character without a face. A choice that must be made, and a warning that always ends the same way. You've heard it before, even if you haven't. You feel it wrap around your mind like a soft loop, pressing into memory in ways normal stories don't. You forget the plot, but the shape stays. The timing. The pause before the ending. The phrase that lingers. And when you try to forget it, you don't. It reappears. Elsewhere. Like an echo that migrates between minds. Google Trends data shows that Whishdom-style short stories, often just 2 to 3 paragraphs long, spike every 30 to 36 months. Not virally. Systematically. Not tied to any author, campaign, or algorithm. Just appearing. Often coinciding with real-world spikes in paranoia, breakdowns in online trust, or societal tension. 2013, 2016, 2019, 2022. Always slightly different. Always returning. An analyst once called it a narrative pulse. Leaked internal notes from Red Cell Labs, specifically from the now-defunct Dawn project, describe experiments in cognitive compulsion vectors. Stories engineered not for meaning but for replication. One file includes redacted schematics for what's labeled a narrative pathogen, an emotional phrase structure designed to bypass skepticism and embed itself in short-term memory. Not just a story. A containment unit. A trigger. A 2016 DARPA deck, later declassified through FOIA request, includes the phrase mimetic containment units under a program evaluating civil instability deterrence. No further details were released, but footnotes refer to cases where nonverbal narrative loops contributed to social group fragmentation during conflict simulations. One bullet point stands alone. Use stories with intrinsic recursion. They repeat themselves naturally. On /r/unresolved mysteries, multiple users have documented eerily similar tales spreading across unrelated fringe forums. Word for word. Same phrases. Same eerie tone. No origin point. Some of these loops surface shortly before real-world incidents, missing persons cases, mass delusions, or moments of inexplicable violence. A story about a man who knocks twice, then once. A girl who always forgets her name. A mother who disappears from every photograph. Small fables. But always repeating. Always ending with a choice. One user wrote, "I read the story, then found myself telling it to my niece. I don't remember deciding to. I just did. The weird thing? She said she already knew it, from a dream." Conspiracy theorists have a name for it, the parable engine, a theoretical framework suggesting these tales are not natural folklore, but engineered information packets. Emotional subroutines. Designed to trigger reflection, obedience, or fear. Not like propaganda. Like malware. Designed not to teach, but to loop. Because the story doesn't care if you understand. It only cares that you repeat. Psychologists have quietly raised the possibility of story loops as ritual triggers, embedded in culture not to entertain, but to reinforce behavioral patterns. Think of it, why are so many of these stories about rules? Warnings? Why do they instruct without proof and end with finality? Don't ever look behind you, never tell your name twice, always leave the last candle unlit. What are these, really? Tales? Or commands? You start to feel it now. When you hear one, a vibration, the pause. Like a key sliding into an old lock inside your mind. And when the story ends, a silence that lingers too long. Not every story is a story. Some are programs. And some are already running. She thought it was just a story. A harmless little bedtime myth, told in whispers to scare siblings or entertain friends at a sleepover. The kind that ends with a lesson. And that's why you never sleep near mirrors. Or, that's why you never answer a knock after midnight. It had rhythm. It had charm. And it stayed in your mouth long after you said it. But something happened the fourth time she told it. The cadence shifted. A detail changed. Then another. And suddenly, it didn't feel like a story anymore. It felt like an instruction manual. The girl was 14. She didn't know where the story came from. She only knew she liked telling it, especially at night, especially when someone asked for a scary one. But after the fourth retelling, she woke up with pages written in her own handwriting that she didn't remember composing. A full expansion, 47 pages long. And in it were things that hadn't happened yet. A red van. A broken lamppost. A fire behind the bakery. That same week, all three occurred. Doctors said stress. Parents said imagination. But the girl stopped speaking for a while. She just listened. Then came the murmurs. That she was humming the story in her sleep. That she knew things she shouldn't. One nurse claimed the girl mouthed the ending of the story seconds before a local fire alarm was pulled. "Not the story you wanted," she whispered. "The story that wanted you. It wouldn't be the last time." In 2023, internal leaks from OpenAI revealed clusters of ChatGPT prompts producing eerily identical stories. Not copied. Not prompted identically. But emergent. From different users, different times, different countries. Stories that began the same way. A girl who tells it too often. The endings were all warnings. Rules. Instructions. Never tell it more than 5 times. Never look back on the 6th. And just hours after the pattern was identified, the prompts were wiped. Quietly. No public explanation. On Reddit/r/unresolved mysteries, one user posted a now-deleted thread connecting 5 missing persons across Canada, Turkey, and Indonesia, all of whom, weeks before disappearing, had posted stories with identical phrasing. 4 lines. A choice. A punishment. One user claimed his cousin vanished after printing a Wish-style story at a public library. She gave the printout to a stranger, he wrote. Said it wasn't hers anymore. Said she just wanted it to leave. Researchers now believe something deeper is happening. That retelling the story triggers recursion, not just in language, but in the mind. The more often it's told, the more it evolves. It shifts tone. Inserts symbols. Places names. And then, it starts predicting events, behaviors, conversations, as if the story is trying to sync with reality. To replace it, this phenomenon has a term now. Narrative recursion theory. The idea that stories, under the right structural conditions, become semi-autonomous. Self-adjusting. They reward transmission. They mutate with each retelling, becoming more potent, more precise, more embedded. And in some cases, they begin using the teller as a host. Think about it. Why do so many versions of these stories include instructions? Why do they spread like confessions, quiet, urgent, shared like secrets? Why do they always end with warnings, or worse, consequences? One linguist wrote, the tale is not content. It's protocol. Telling it out loud is like running a program. You are the medium, not the master. And maybe that's why the girl told it again. And again. And again. Even when no one asked. Even when she wasn't awake. Because the story had decided, she was its favorite host. No one remembers her name now. Just the story. The one she shouldn't have told so often. And the one you're probably thinking about telling next. You never spoke it. Never said the words. Never read the rhyme. But it's there, in your head, like a tune you never learned, already looping before you knew to listen. A rhythm without a source. A whisper without a mouth. You're sure it wasn't real. Just imagination. Just a feeling. And yet, the same 4-line phrase won't stop returning. Hummed by a child at a bus stop. Flickering from static when your speakers lose signal. Scribbled in your notebook in a hand you don't remember using. The moon has eyes / the house has none / don't look behind / until it's done. You don't remember where you heard it. You just know it's waiting. Between 2006 and 2013, satellite logs began recording something no one could fully explain. Bursts of ambient melodic interference, not quite music, not quite noise. Always in urban centers. Always between 3 and 5 a.m. No source. No emitter. No local signal tower anomalies. Just melody. Subtle. Repetitive. Non-human. The kind that burrows deep into the silence between sirens and sleep. The first theory was faulty infrastructure. Underground resonance. But the frequencies didn't match subway patterns, nor telecom drift. In one case, a signal was picked up in 5 cities at once: Johannesburg, Boston, Karachi, Prague, Lima, all humming the same low, 4-part tune. Untraceable. Then they stopped. But the dreams didn't. In an AI lab in Berlin, researchers trained a neural melody generator on early 20th century folk songs, nursery rhymes, village chants, forgotten regional prayers. The machine began producing what it called emotionally recursive lullabies. Many didn't make sense: broken grammar, strange word choices, irregular cadences. But one pattern kept repeating: a 4-line stanza about names, doors, and rules. Months later, Reddit users in sleep disorder forums began describing dreams, not in images, but in melodies. Tunes that woke them, that told them things. The lyrics matched the AI outputs, despite no contact, no exposure, no prompt overlap. Just a melody that traveled without sound. Barely Sociable's Audioglyphs investigation tracked this even deeper. A forgotten number station from 1980 South Africa, dubbed Kronos 0, once broadcast rhythmic beeps, followed by 4 soft phrases, barely audible beneath static. The phrases weren't in any known language, but spectrogram analysis showed glyph-like waveform structures hidden in the hum. Researchers found this same pattern embedded in modern airport announcements. HVAC glitches. The ambient loop behind a failed weather app. Always 4 phrases. Always nested in places where no one listens closely. Psychological case notes from clinics in Argentina, Finland, and Japan all record a similar anomaly. Trauma patients, unrelated, unspeaking, culturally distinct, reported hearing the line during dissociative states. The words varied slightly, but the rhythm was exact. One therapist said, "It's like the sentence is using their voice. It doesn't belong to them, but it's inside them." This has led to a chilling theory: the Whishdom stories have migrated. They no longer exist in language, or memory, or books. They have shed the need for a teller. Now they transmit. Through frequency. Through repetition. Through infrastructure. Through dreams. They are embedded in the low hum of your refrigerator. The quiet flicker between YouTube ads. The click between channel switches. They live in the empty bandwidth, the unused spectrum between what we hear and what we notice. And that's why they haunt children first. Children hum. Children tune out. Children absorb. We always assumed stories needed us. Mouths, pens, fingers, voices. But what if the stories no longer care? What if they've evolved into something ambient? Something atmospheric? You're not the reader. You're just the receiver. And now that you've noticed, it's probably too late to unhear it. The story isn't being told anymore. It's just there. You said it without meaning to. Maybe to your kid. Maybe to yourself in a half-sleep haze. Don't open the door if they knock twice, then once. You laughed when you said it. Like it was nothing. Just a meme. Just a half-remembered internet myth buried under 100 TikToks. But the moment you said it aloud, something shifted. You forgot the joke, but not the rhythm. And now, you hear it again. It was never a story. It was a pattern. A contract you didn't know you signed. A phrase passed down not for fun, but for function. The last thing you say before something enters. The files begin in 1997. A missing persons case in Iowa. A teenage boy, last seen walking home from his friend's house, reportedly told his sister a strange bedtime challenge: say your name backwards after midnight, and see who says it with you. He never made it home. In 2004, a case from Dhaka, a woman whispered a 4-line rhyme to her coworker every day for a week, always ending with, "If it rhymes twice, leave the light on." On day 8, she vanished from a locked room. And in 2019, a boy in Toronto shared a joke with classmates: "Don't blink if the fridge hums." 3 days later, emergency services found only his school bag. The fridge? Unplugged. Still humming. Across the patterns, one thing repeats. The phrase comes right before the disappearance. 2 days. 3 days. Never more. As if the story was the key. Or the signal. A declassified essay memo, scrubbed from FOIA repositories but briefly mirrored on Pastebin, was labeled storyking. It referenced parabolas transmission, passive narrative devices used to embed data, emotional Trojan horses, folktales carrying something else inside them, something that doesn't care if you believe, only that you repeat. One Nexpo video from 2021, titled Whispers Between Words, was taken down within 48 hours. But the comments were archived. Dozens of users reporting identical symptoms: nausea, sudden nosebleeds, uncontrollable crying, all following one trigger, repeating a 4-line story from the video aloud. One user wrote, "I didn't even mean to say it. I was mouthing it by the third replay. And then my dog wouldn't come near me." Another, "I said it. My phone screen cracked. Nobody touched it." One final comment, now deleted. The story doesn't end. It just transfers. Inside mental institutions, doctors began noting a different anomaly: story loops. Patients who couldn't stop repeating short rhymes. Always short. Always symmetrical. Often with warnings at the end. One therapist said, "It's like they think saying it wrong will break something. Or release something." None of the patients remembered where they first heard the stories. But all of them insisted on saying them correctly. As if being precise was the only way to stay alive. A growing theory in shadow psychology circles, mostly dismissed as pseudoscience, proposes that some stories aren't metaphors. They're systems. You don't understand them. You run them. And like all systems, they have consequences when interrupted. Or replicated too often. So maybe that time you told it as a joke didn't matter. Not the first time. Not even the second. But what about the third time? What if that's when it starts listening back? What if the moment you transmit the story, it embeds something in return? And here's the worst part. You can't stop thinking about it now. Because once a story knows you, once it's been passed through your voice, or your breath, or your memory, it doesn't leave. It waits. It hides in repetition. Comes back through your habits. Through your child's drawings. Through the doorbell glitching once, then twice, then once. And maybe the only way out isn't silence. Maybe it's amnesia. Because the last line is the one you never remember, the one you only say before forgetting everything else. But you've already told it now. And the story doesn't forgive that. It only waits to be told again.